Hello and welcome to the British Dapper. Today we're talking about Sartorial Elegance Today, keeping classic style alive. So as the title describes, we're talking about sartorial elegance in today's environment, and that got me thinking. When I checked my demographic of the age profiles of the people that are watching my channel, I was quite shocked to find that 70% of the people that watch my channel are aged between 14 and 44 years of age. Quite a young demographic for this channel. And that got me thinking about, in this day and age, how young men are looking for something to change the way they dress, and they are revisiting that classic style. And this was borne out by a conversation that I had with a friend by an exchange of text messages, where he said that he bumped into this young lad at a railway station. He was dressed impeccably well, suit, tie, shoes, nice watch, and they struck up a conversation about men's attire. And the young lad was in his 20s, early 20s, and was really keen to dress and act in a gentlemanly way, and was very keen on wearing classic men's style. And something else that happened to me over the weekend, I saw a band called Blossoms, and they're a rock band, and they dress typically in the 70s style with flared jeans and trousers and long hair, and very much a 70s vibe, but their music was very much the here and now and very popular. Again, this bears out the fact that those styles come back again from time to time. And it reminds me of Lenny Kravitz, many years ago, was wearing Cuban heels and flared trousers, very much a 70s vibe back in the 80s and 90s. And everybody remarked on how cool he looked. So these things go around, come around, and it's very interesting to pull apart certain elements of men's sartorial dress and address how they used to be used and how they are currently being used, if at all. So there have been some sartorial changes over the decades, and the one that really stands out for me, and you'll get where I'm coming from with this theme, is that in the 60s there was a dramatic shift from people wearing formal dress hats and caps to not wearing them at all, or very few people wearing them. And we saw a dramatic drop in the number of people wearing dress hats. Going on decades now, one could argue that the hat industry is dead and died, but it didn't. It maintained a very low tick over, and at this stage we're now seeing an upsurge in people wearing hats. And it could be, whilst it might not be in the most formal settings, but I've noticed an increase in people wearing trilby hats and fedoras in my local town. Albeit they might be wearing them with jeans and a waistcoat or some other form of dress, but the hat is still alive in the way it's being used. Now we see people wearing the hats wanting to look cool, and there's nothing wrong with wearing a formal stylish hat. And we see a lot of young men demonstrating the wearing of the hat and using that to promote a cool look for themselves. And it doesn't have to be in the most formal of settings, but it does look cool in the right environment. And I would say that we have seen a steady increase in the number of people wearing them. And similarly with caps, and I use the Bakerboy cap as an example. In the 1920s, 30s, 40s, it was a very popular hat to wear. it died a death. And whilst flat caps were still being worn through the 50s, 60s and 70s, and even into the 80s, it was the latter part of the 80s into the 90s and onwards where we started to see the big Bakerboy hats coming back into fashion. And now you see them everywhere. So it's a very common item of clothing that has had a resurgence over the last couple of decades. And it demonstrates to me that whilst things go out of fashion, they have a slight resurgence, and then once they become a little bit more popular and in the public eye more, they become much more iconic and a lot more people wear them. I feel at the moment the tie, the humble tie, is going along a similar trajectory to that of the hats. Very popular at one stage, and now we see very few people wearing them. If you watch the TV at the moment and we watching game shows or similar things, you'll see people wearing a suit but not wearing a tie, or they're wearing a jacket and trousers but not wearing a tie with it. And it's become much more of an iconic piece that is quite rare to see now. And this brings me on to, whilst it has decreased in the number of people wearing a tie, there are still people out there that wear them and look really good with them. Now at the moment they might not be in vogue in a fashion sense, but I suspect, like the hat, if you really want to look cool in a few years' time, you'll be wearing a tie. So for the youngsters out there in that group that I was talking about, don't be afraid to wear a tie. Try it. Try and introduce that hat, introduce that tie into the way that you dress now. And this channel's been dedicated for the last 3 years in trying to promote people looking at wearing classic men's attire and increasing the number of people wearing it by giving them suggested ideas, not necessarily the best ideas from a fashion point of view, but something that you could build on, something that could inspire you, give you ideas that might help you make that transition from wearing jeans and t-shirts into wearing suits, jackets, trousers, formal shoes, and getting that classic look that seems to be quite popular at the moment when we look at the fashion houses, and particularly in Italy, France and in London at the moment, where we've seen an increase in people wearing tweed, suits, formal trousers and also hats, for example fedoras, in that everyday wear. So just a few things that have been going through my head of late, and I thought I'd express them to you, and maybe it might inspire you to try something different. And whilst I dress in a classic style, I'm not adverse to changing things a little bit and wearing something a little bit more relaxed. And at the other extreme, also wearing something quite formal. So it's about being flexible. And when it comes to certain times of the year, maybe have 1 or 2 classic looks that you want to go to when it gets warm, wearing that cotton jacket or that linen jacket, and a much more relaxed pair of trousers, a shirt, maybe a tie and a nice pair of shoes. To the other extreme, where you've got a more formal wear, where you've got a suit, tie, and using a pocket square, nice pair of shoes to go with that, and you've got a really good formal, semi-formal look. And in the winter months, it's about keeping warm, so that wool coat, that British warm coat, and maybe a submariner jumper and a pair of jeans and or chinos, cords, and a pair of Brogue shoes goes really well for their winter months. So I'm interested to know what you think, and do you think there is something that is currently on the downward trend that you feel might in the future disappear completely? Or are you a sort of person that is trying to keep things alive and regenerate the way things are worn? For example, you might wear a fedora and you might wear a wool coat and maybe something a little bit more relaxed, like for example trainers on your feet or something a more relaxed look, but still want to wear that fedora. Let me know what you think. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give us a thumbs up. If you'd like to subscribe, then please feel free to do so. We have a Buy Me a Coffee page, so if you'd like to make a contribution to the channel, then please feel free to do so. We also love constructive comments, so if you'd like to make some, jot them down below. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. And if you've got a question you'd like to pose to us or you'd like an answer to, then why not jot it down? We'll try and answer your question for you. We also like ideas for future videos, so if you want to make a contribution and make a suggestion about future content, then please again jot it in the notes below and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. The next video could be something that you've recommended or suggested. So until next time, take care.